We're today going through the Phase II data collection of ESSER reporting. The focus of today's webinar will be on Phase II, so we're currently in Phase I, and the portal will be closing on March 7th for that. But we're talking today specifically about Phase II. So we're going to talk through the timeline. We're going to talk through the actual data that you need to submit. We're going to look at the template itself and talk about how to fill out that template. And then provide also some resources at the end that you can use in order to complete your submission. So this is working? All right, great. So I do want to make a quick note that this is specifically about ESSER reporting for those of y'all that received regular ESSER funding, which based on the names of the participants, I do believe that's everyone on the call today. If you were an ESSER equivalent LEA, you will be getting an email next week with different directions. If you're an ESSER equivalent LEA, this is not the reporting you need to do. You need to do a different kind of reporting, and you will receive an email next week about that. So you could actually just drop off this webinar now and it would be fine because this is specifically just for regular ESSER recipients. All right, so quick look at the overall timeline. We're wrapping up Phase I. We're rolling into Phase II. There will be a data corrections window, and then all the data will need to be certified in April. OSSI will then consolidate all the information from all the LEAs and submit it to the Department of Ed in the April-May timeframe. More specifically, the ESSER 2 data window collection will be from March 7th to March 21st. So that is starting next Tuesday, and then it'll be open for about 2 weeks. And then there will be a data correction window from the 24th to the 31st. This data correction window is applicable to Phase I and Phase II data. So we're going to do the data window all at once after all the data has been submitted. Just a quick note, after all the data, any corrections that need to be made have been made, the LEA leader will need to go into Click and certify the data on behalf of the LEA. Only the LEA leader can do this, so please make sure to flag this for your leaders, or if you are that person, please make sure to add a calendar invite to yourself or something just to remind yourself that this will need to be completed by April 3rd. All right, so talking specifically about Phase II requirements. So there are 3 things that need to happen in Phase II. One is that you need to submit specific expenditure data by specific categories. We will be providing you your EGMS reimbursement data just like we did last year to help with this part of the submission. You'll need to talk about your planned uses of your remaining ESSER funds. That's a pretty high level submission by percentages and by grant. And then very finally, your student enrollment FT data. We obviously already have this. We know that you submit it already. It's already been certified. So we're just going to reflect back to you what we have just to make sure, you know, there were no data error feeds or anything of that nature and that those numbers are right. So we're first going to talk about this, the expenditure data, because it is the bulk of the submission. If you remember from last year, this is pretty detailed. So you have to cut it by grant/program. I'll talk a little bit about what /program means in a second, by spending activity, and then by the type of cost. So in detail, what does that look like? So you first have to split your data between 4 broad swaths: your CARES grant, your ESSER 2 CRESA grant, your ESSER 3 ARP grant, and then also the subset of ESSER 3 ARP that you use just on evidence-based interventions. So there's going to be 4 first cuts. After you do these 4 first cuts, you then have to cut that again into different types of spending activities. So addressing physical health, students' academic and social emotional needs, mental health supports for students and staff, and then operational continuity and other. After that cut, you then need to categorize into the cost types. So salaries and benefits, purchase services, supplies, etc. So this does get pretty detailed, but we wanted you to be aware of this upfront in case you weren't the person who submitted last year, or in case last year was a long time ago and we all don't necessarily remember everything that happened then. All right, so we're going to give y'all your EGMS data in Click. There will be 4 different spreadsheets you'll need to download. It will be line by line. It'll be very detailed reimbursement data from EGMS, so that will aid in your ability to cut it into the different categories that we just went over. Please note there are 4 spreadsheets in Click with your ESSER data, so please make sure you download all of them. And then we also will be providing mapping of your expenditures. So if you remember, you had to tag budget codes to each of your line items in EGMS when you did your budget and then also in the reimbursements. And so we have mapped those budget codes to the different types of spending activities that Ed has asked for. This doesn't map cleanly one-to-one, which is why we definitely need a lot of your assistance in helping making those final determinations. But this mapping should serve as a good starting place, at least for you to begin the tagging. So that's what the expenditure data looks like. Next, we're going to talk through how you'll actually submit it. So what does the template itself actually look like? All right, so from here, we are going to first talk about downloading the template, right? The ESSER data sheets. There's an instructional guide, and then you'll use that data from the downloads from Click to actually submit in accordance with the required Ed categories. So first you log into your IDS portal. At this point, I think everyone should have access. If you've been able to access through phase 1, this is the exact same access. You download the template just like you did for phase 1. And then from there, these are the 4 categories you'll need to submit in. So each of these categories, the physical, mental health, meeting student social, academic, social, emotional, and other needs, mental health supports, operational continuity, each of those is on a different section in the template, right? So this is the first one. So you can see here at the very top, this is the spending activity, meeting students' social, emotional, academic, and other needs. And then below are the actual different cost types here. And then down this side are your different grants and programs. So if you look here, this yellow piece that's highlighted, the number in this box would mean the amount of ESSER 1 cares that you'll spend on meeting students' academic, social, emotional, and other needs, and specifically used on supplies. Right, so there's sort of different dimensions in this template, so just make sure you're taking the time to make sure you're understanding what should go in each cell before kind of jumping in and filling it out. All right, so the first category, addressing physical health and safety. Here are some examples of the things that belong in this category. I think this one is probably the most or relatively straightforward. This also includes vaccines, testing, any kind of additional space you made, classroom space, whether that was renting or having to move people around, any PP&E that was purchased. Assistance for meals is also in here. And then any kind of building facilities changes or upgrades that you made through your ESSER funds. So this is what this tab, sorry, looks like, addressing physical health and safety. So again, you have your grants plus the evidence-based interventions piece right here, and then all the different cost types here. In the template, you'll also see something that says option set. This indicates the type of information that you should be typing into these cells here. So here it says numeric, and then you should be typing out to 2 decimal places. Next, we have, I'm just going to shorten this to say students' needs. um, so this includes more or less anything instructional, Wi-Fi, right, tutoring, devices, which I think from what we've seen is the bulk of what most people have spent on. So I'm going to assume that we're going to see the highest amount of dollars reported in this particular category. Again, this template looks very much the same. So the larger category here, and then you see all the different cost types here, and you should be filling out 4 rows, one for ESSER 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and 3, and then the last row for reserving the reservation for evidence-based interventions. At the very end, of every tab, it also sums right here. If nothing was spent, please make sure you're typing in 0. If there's any empty cells, your template may get kicked back. So just make sure you fill out every single cell. So again, if you didn't spend any money in that area, totally cool. Just put in a 0 and then move on. All right, next, mental health supports. So again, here are some examples of different costs that go into mental health supports, either for staff or for students. And again, the template is set up the same way. So on this tab, you see the spending category here at the top, mental health supports, and then the different cost types in each column. And then for each row would represent a different grant / the reservation for evidence-based interventions. And then last but not least, operational continuity. This is sort of the large catch-all other bucket. Some of the most common things y'all have spent on that may fall into this category are stipends, also vaccination incentives as well belong in this category. And again, this tab is also set up exactly the same way. So you see the major spending category at the top, the different cost types here below, and then again, you would fill out 4 rows, one for each grant plus the reservation for evidence-based interventions. I think I'm seeing potentially a question in the chat. Oh, it says the screen is frozen, um, and the slides are not advancing. Okay, let me stop sharing and then reshare. Is it, let's see. You should be looking at a red slide that says Phase 2 US Ed Reporting Planned Use of Expenditures. Can someone give a thumbs up or type something in the chat if that is what you see? Yes, okay. And now I've changed the slide, so it's a white background now that says ESSER Recovery Funding Phase 2 Reporting. It's working? Okay, cool. Thank y'all. Glad we're back in business. All right, so the next piece is the planned uses of remaining ESSER funds. So anything you had left at the end of FY22. If you're not sure what this number is, you can actually log into EGMS and click View Payments on the ESSER tile and see what your remaining funds are. But yeah, and whatever you had left as of the end of FY22, so as of September 30th, 2022. Um, This you only have to answer for the 3 grants. You do not need a 4th row for the reservation for evidence-based interventions here. So again, just 3 rows, and then just a percentage of how much you plan to spend in each of these spending categories. And then if you don't have a specific planned use yet, there's sort of this catch-all column at the very end as well. You will not be held accountable to what you put into this particular portion of your planned uses. And so don't feel like if you put 100% in addressing physical health and safety that you have to do that in the upcoming FY23 and FY24 years. That is not true. This is just to the best of your knowledge right now, how you plan to use these funds. Please make sure your percentages add up to 100%, because that's how percentages work. I don't know how else to explain that. But yeah, just make sure the numbers add up. All right, and then once you're done with your template, you then upload it into back into IDS. You may run into errors, things like that. So give a little time to make sure the upload goes through. And of course, we're always here to help if you're having issues with the upload. All right, and then last but not least, the student enrollment and full-time employees. So again, this is already on file at OSSE, so you don't need to actually submit any numbers here. We will upload these numbers for you in Click. So if you remember this screen from before, this is the same place you're going to go to download your EGMS reimbursement data for the first section of the template that you would upload into IDS. For this, you can just click into these to make sure these numbers are right. If they're not, please reach out to us and let us know so that we can look into why there's potentially an issue or a discrepancy. This should match the data that y'all previously certified for the 21-22 school year around enrollment and FTE. All right, and then last but not least, um, in the template for submission IDS, just like with phase one, there is a data elements description tab in this template as well that goes into the description of the different categories and things like that. So if you need some additional support, you can always reference this tab. This is provided directly by the Department of Education. We have the instructional guide. So the same as for phase one, we also have the phase two instructional guide. You can see here it goes into the same level of detail, like literally meant to be a click by click, tab by tab type guide. And so you can have this open next to you and reading through it as you are working through your EGMS reimbursement data and the IDS template. Um, we're going to pre-populate as much as possible. We have this webinar as well as another one upcoming on Tuesday. Joy, if you could drop the link to the registration for the next webinar, that'd be helpful. If you really want to attend again, or if you have colleagues and other LEAs that do this work that you want to share with, please go ahead and do that. We have the user guide that, as I just mentioned, that's posted on our website. You obviously can always reach out to us at aussie.esser, or you can contact your ESSER grant specialist directly. I think some of y'all may have gotten notice that your ESSER grant specialist is changing, and you should be getting an intro email soon. But either way, you can always email aussie.esser with questions, and we'll make sure to get back to you. Lastly, for certifying data, we'll be releasing. Actually, Joy, is it already up on the website? The instructional guide to certifying data or not? I don't think it's, oh no, okay, it's not posted yet, but we will get that posted soon for your LEA leader so that they know how to certify the data once they get into Click. All right, so kind of to sum it all up, here are kind of the specific breakdown of step by step what you should do to submit your data. So go download the instructional guide. You should download all of your EGMS data from Click. That will be available as of March 7th. Um, Once you have that, you should take your data from Click and map all your expenditures to all those different categories. And then you can use that and enter those numbers into your phase two template. And then also let us know if you need any corrections to your enrollment or FTE data. Um, After that, oh, I think there's a little bit out of order. The review should have gone first. All right, then submit the template and submit changes to your enrollment FTE data. Um, if you need to make any changes to your IDS information, your expenditure information, anything like that, that will need to be resolved by March 31st. And then the final certification will happen on April 3rd. All right, so with that, if you have any questions, please feel free to throw them in the chat or feel free to come off mute and ask them as well. Yes, so the slides will be posted on the website. That link that says phase one and two ESSER reporting information. Um, uh, it'll get posted. Actually, let me drop it. Just the general website in here. So if you go to this website here, and then go to the data and reporting section, these slides as well as this recording will be posted. Seeing some other questions potentially coming through. The link to register for the next section is if you scroll up, Joy popped that into the chat already. It says registration link for phase 2 webinar Monday, March 6th at 10:30 a.m. And then there's a Microsoft form below that. All right. If there aren't any other questions, thank you so much for joining us today. If there's anything else, please email us, and I hope you all have a great afternoon. Thanks, y'all.